That's our cue. Anyways, hey, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I've been excited about our guest tonight. Um, I wasn't sure he would say yes, but first I want to say we had a fantastic weekend up in Paso. I think everybody had a lot of fun. For those of you that went to the party, it was killer. We had some inclement weather, but you know what? Nobody left.
Yeah.
Just gutted it out, and we all had a good time and probably drank too much, and but it was a great time, and I appreciate everybody's support for that, and figure out what we're going to do next year. But I just want to get into the fact that I had asked Bill Gibbs a few months ago if he would like to do a show. And the first question he asked me is, going, why does anybody want to talk to a farmer? But to me, the first stage in making wine is the grower. Now, we know many wineries where the winemaker is the farmer and the grower, but he is specifically dedicated to growing, and he's been involved with growing a fruit for some of the most highly, from a critic standpoint, wines in the world, and we're going to get into that. But I think I think people are fascinated by that part of it. If you remember, we had Ishka on, Bill, about last spring? Yeah, and he all he talks about is farming. He's the winemaking part of it is mystery.
Yeah, that's just business, but his heart is in the vineyard.
Correct, right. So before we kick it off to Jason, let me just say that we don't have any gotcha questions on here, Bill. So, but if we seem to be heading down a path that a question might compromise your agreements or contracts, or implied contracts, do me a favor and just give me a sign. You can go zip it.
I could tell you, but I have to kill you.
Or for the heavy social media influencers, and STFU will just work fine. Okay. But we do like dirt.
Well, thank you for having me.
That's a joke, by the way.
Dirt. A pun. That was a pun.
A pun.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm going to turn it over to Jason. We're going to learn a lot about what Bill does in his history, and I think you're going to be fascinated by the conversation. Go ahead, Jason.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks everybody for joining. Bill, thank you for joining us in this special episode of Meet Your Grower. And what you got there, Mike?
Well, I'm saying we should show. I made a couple posts, like if you have some G2 wine, or not just G2, Heart Stone, G2 North,
G3.
Show it from whoever the maker is. I actually opened two because I'm decadent. I opened two Saxum, one G2, and a Heart Stone.
Oh, those are all my. I feel like children,
Right. A 19 G2 and a 20 Heart Stone.
Well, I saw the Niderer go by. That was a unicorn, only made 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw Top. I saw Saxum. I saw Rise. So let's just make it easy to start off. What's your favorite, Bill?
Yeah. There you go. I forgot about that one. Yeah, gotcha.
You can't have a favorite. You have to love them all. I try very hard not to sell grapes to people whose wine I don't like. That just seems stupid.
All right, well, let's start there then. Whose don't you like? Kidding again. Okay. We'll get serious. So let's rewind to software engineering days. Are you from SoCal?
Yes, I am a fourth generation Californian on my father's side, born and raised in the San Fernando Valley. Van Nuys Junior High School, Van Nuys High School. I went to college.
So you did not go far when you rolled over to Northridge for for
No,
school?
went to college at San Fernando Valley State College, which turned into Cal State University Northridge, and
I
went there.
didn't know that's what Cal State Northridge was before that.
A lot of people don't know about the old days, but I'll try not to dwell on how old I am. Took me about 13 years to get a degree because I went to work as an engineer after a couple of years of college, and it just continued at nights at Northridge, and then got in love with computers, which were much simpler back then, and was trying to get a degree in computer science when someone came along and hired me to make software for CNC machines, which I kind of knew something about from the engineering and from the education. And my first job that I really loved was this making software for CNC machines. Only that company went out of business after 4 years. And I started
what's CNC?
Excuse me?
What is CNC?
Computer numerical control. These are machines, mills that cut metal or lathes that cut metal. Very big in aerospace. Just about everything that has a cut metal part, and you make more than one of them, would rather be done on a CNC machine because it can make any number of parts you want very economically. So then I got into a contracting business using the software. Then the Macintosh came out. So here we are in 84. We fell in love with a computer that had a mouse and pictures on the screen. Wow, this was great. So we started making software for the Macintosh, and I bootstrapped this up into a small business and sold it in 2008. That's a fast forward for you. 35 years, zip.
All right. Well, but there's still between 2008 and 2016. Fill in that gap for us.
Well, in 2008, when I sold the company, I sold it to an Israeli company, and they required me to stay for 5 years, but I really liked working for them. It turned out Israelis are basically Californians with a different accent. They're mostly secular. The people I dealt with were not what you would conceive of as radical conservative Jewish people. They were just normal people, and they let me run North America and my part of the company the way I wanted. So it actually lasted for 8 years and could have gone on further, except they sold out to a big American company that was terrible. And they came to me and said, "You ought to retire." And I said, "I ought to retire." So in 16, I left and started focusing more attention on my vineyards. And in 19, that became a farming company.
Hold on, before you get to 19. So
well, let's get back to 11, because we have to rewind back to 11, which was 3 years after I'd sold the company. And my wife said, "We have a little more money than we've ever had in our lives. We need to have a vacation house." And we were already coming to Paso. We were already winos. We're coming up on 49 years this June.
Wow.
And after the first 10 years, we could afford a bottle of wine. And then after 15 years, we could afford 2 or 3 bottles of wine. And we went through Santa Ynez, it was closest, went to Napa because it was famous, went to Paso, and we kept coming back to Paso. We loved the people, we loved the wines. It became our favorite wine region, and we came back up here a couple times a year with friends. Usually stayed in San Simeon. You guys know where Kings Row Cavalier Inns on the beach there. And then we would drive in wine tasting. Of course, there weren't as many wineries back then. In the early days, we went to all the wineries, all 15 of them.
Oh, 15. Yeah.
All 15.
But it was fun because I joined Lenny Collado when Matt was in a barn climbing on barrels doing the tastings himself. We met Scott Hawley in the back barrel room at Booker in one of his first public tastings ever.
Well, but Bill, before you're making these journeys up here to wine region from the valley, you had already, I assume, developed a love for wine, right? Or at least an interest in wine.
That's why we were buying these bottles of wine that we could afford.
Sure.
One of my first employers gave me a bottle of Gewürztraminer. And we go, "Wow, this is better than Lancer. This is better than Matus."
Right.
we should really find something out about this wine. And we started out loving Chardonnay, and then we escalated to Pinot Noir. And then we found Paso wines and go, these are even better. Look at these Rhônes, Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre.
And what a contrast from those cold weather climate
Oh, yeah.
Pinot and Chardonnay
We
to
passed through
Paso.
cabs in there somewhere as our favorite, but we ended up with Rhônes as the ones we liked best. And it all just contributed to liking Paso. So, yeah.
So you develop a taste, an appreciation for wine, at least in your software days.
When
And
we had, yeah,
is
discretionary
German
income is
white
important.
wine what was the kind of aha wine for you?
Well, I don't remember the name of the Gewürztraminer. It was a European import. What were some of the Zaca Mesa Chardonnay was an early favorite.
Okay.
I think it was a
Yeah,
Panther.
I've had that one. Yeah.
I think it was a Panther Creek Pinot Noir from Oregon. Was an early favorite.
Wow.
And when we got up here to Paso, our favorites became all the people you know today. I mean, we were Booker fans for a while before they got big. I have a special interest in smaller wineries where you can run into an owner and a winemaker, and when they get to a certain size, it's like they're a chemical engineering company now. They're making 1 million cases, and they have flavor dials they can't deviate from. They're not interested in expressing what's in the vineyard. So from a personal wine point of view, I prefer the more smallish people. In fact, through my vineyards, I have what I call a nursery program, and I go out seeking small producers, very, very, very small producers, and see if we can't help them get some fruit and see what they can do. And every now and then, it turns out to be a great investment. Stanley at Top was one of my first such projects. I met him at a Garage East festival, probably back in, I don't know, 14 or 15. And his wines just popped at the Friday night special. And I went over to join the club, and they said, "Don't you have grapes?" I go, "Yeah, I do." And he goes, "Well, can we get some of those?" I said, "No, I don't have any for sale, but we'll work on it." And the first year we had a couple extra tons of Grenache Blanc, but now he was a customer, so he got offered fruit before non-customers. And the next year we found some Syrah for him, and the next year we found his favorite Syrah block. It just all kind of was timely. I was
Right,
getting
I want to pause you and rewind again. I want to go back to your first purchase, which is Heart Stone.
Heart Stone, yes. So that was the vacation house. I was sitting in an airport playing with my phone on Zillow. This would have been 11. And I go, "Debbie, my wife, you know that house you want me to get? Here's one in Paso." And I zoom up. It's beautiful. Look, it's got grapes. Look, it's the Heart Stone. Isn't that your favorite Saxum wine? I go, "My God, this place has grapes that sell to Saxum. How great would that be?" And there's a very long story, but the short form is that I confirmed with Justin that he was going to continue taking the grapes, which he wasn't. And I said, "I'm not going to buy the place unless you take the grapes." And that's when he told me I had to find him a farmer because he couldn't farm it anymore. The story of Heart Stone is that a couple that wanted to live on a vineyard hired him to pick the property, plant the vineyard, and to farm the vineyard, since probably 98. And Justin said, "Only if I can buy the fruit." And that was the deal. Justin took the Heart Stone fruit and he farmed it. But he had grown to a size in 11 where he just couldn't do the farming anymore. He had James Barry. He had his other projects. And he said, "You're going to have to find a farmer that I approve of." And I said, "How hard can that be?" Well, it was very hard. I just made a list of every farmer I could find, farming company, and he just wasn't impressed. At the time, Juan Navarez had been helping out, but he couldn't be the farmer because Justin had this in mind. And I went through all sorts of people. Guillaume Fabre was working at L'Aventure at the time, and he wanted to moonlight and do some vineyard management. I go, "Justin, how about this guy? He's great. He's even French." And Justin goes, "Not the guy." So this whole deal is about ready to crash and burn because I can't find a farmer that meets Justin. And I said, look, Justin, we don't need a farmer. We just need someone who can manage the crews and stuff. And I'll get them to do exactly what you want. You have to come over, tell us what to do, and I will make sure that they do that. Whatever it is you want.
Execution. Yeah.
We will custom farm to your specification. You can visit as often as you want. Whatever it is, I'll get it done. Because I can manage. I wasn't much of a farmer in those days. And he said, okay, we'll give it a try. And we kept Juan Navarez. And Juan was our vineyard manager, his farm company. And Justin came over and gave me a laundry list of what to do in every block. And I went through it with Juan and then rode his butt to make sure he did it exactly Justin's way, because that wasn't the way people farmed around here. People weren't farming to 2 tons an acre. They were farming to 6. And they weren't farming organically. They were farming inexpensively. And the list just went on of things that weren't Juan's normal way of doing things. But for 4 years, it worked out.
How many blocks was that?
Oh, it depends on how you count blocks. It was just under 7 acres. Now, officially, we call it blocks 1 and blocks 2. The front 5-acre block has like 11 subdivisions, because when he planted it, he wanted 2 rows of this clone and 2 rows of that clone and 2 rows of this clone and 2 rows of that clone, which he doesn't do anymore because it's harder than hell to keep it all straight and farm it. But yeah, so probably about 6.5 acres was what it originally was.
In Heart Stone, just so they know, is up in Adelaide district, correct? Oh,
Heart Stone has been declared an honorary Willow Creek Vineyard.
okay.
Who makes that
You're right.
declaration? Out of
It's in
curiosity.
Adelaide. We're exactly half a mile up vineyard from the borderline.
Right. Okay.
So we're pretty darn close to Willow Creek, but we are not in Willow Creek. The line is at Peachy Canyon.
The soil, the same, right?
No,
Okay.
but Willow Creek is not one uniform soil either.
Right.
They grouped it by very general categories. What makes G2 Willow Creek centric and Willow Creek unique is very high limestone and very high acid. It's not quite that bad over here at Heart Stone, but it's still very rocky, and there are lots of similarities. You wouldn't see it as identical soil, but you wouldn't see it as very far removed either.
Right.
So you guys are managing now, or farming, I should say, Heart Stone to Justin's specification. Clearly, he likes the results.
He does. And Heart Stone is doing well, and the wines are doing well. And I got to know Justin, and I took copious notes on everything he told us to do, figuring I'd write a book someday and sell it for a lot of money. It never happened. But in 2013, the company that had bought me had a event called an IPO is an initial something or other.
Offering.
Yeah, they had a secondary public offering. They had been unable to sell their company, and the biggest investor wanted to cash out a lot of his stock. So they were successful in putting together a secondary public offering. And because I'm not the best businessman in town, I had sold my company for a little bit of cash and a lot of their stock. So this was my chance to convert. I mean, this is 5 years after I sold the company, but I was able to convert my stock into something more liquid. And here I am at the end of 13 with money in the bank going, what am I going to do with it? I better get another vineyard. At the time, I was losing money on Heart Stone, and probably still do, because you just can't economically farm to very high standards a 6-acre property. Okay, it grew to 7 acres, but still 7 acres is just too damn tiny. It's too much moving equipment back and forth. It's too much moving crews around for too little work. There are lots of problems.
Is this an economies of scale kind of issue where you just can't?
It is. It largely is. And I figured, it's the classic blunder. We're losing money, but we could probably make it up in volume. So we're going to do more of this. And I went to Justin and said, Justin, help me find a vineyard, but a bigger one that we can be commercially a business with. And he said, okay. And he called his favorite realtor, who is Mark Adams' wife,
Of course.
Sierra.
From Ledge, right.
From Ledge. We all hopped in her car and we drove around and looked at every vineyard that was for sale in Paso Robles at the end of 2013. Maybe this is the middle of 2013, but it was in 2013. And, this one's no good, and that one's all Syrah, and maybe, I'm not sure. And he goes, I like this one, Bill. I've driven past this place every year I've lived here, and I've always wondered what it would be like to get grapes off of it. It's got steep slopes. It looks really hard to farm. You'll love it. I said, okay. So I bought it. At the time, it didn't have a name. Its earlier name had been Gravity Hill. And the guy who bought it sold the name. He sold the name Gravity Hill to a winery in Napa that was owned by some other big conglomerate. They went out of business. The name wasn't being used. So I called them up and said, hey, can I buy the Gravity Hill name? And they said, sure, $25,000. And I thought $25,000 was a little ridiculous for an unused name.
Right.
I didn't love Gravity Hill that much. So we had to come up with another name. The previous owner operated under VZZ, which is still on my picking bins. It stood for Very Super Zinfandel. Ah.
Yeah. No bueno.
He couldn't pay me to take Very Super Zinfandel. So my family and I got together. We made up a list of all these vineyard names. And I went over to Saxum. This is the old Saxum, not the new Saxum. And he was topping barrels off with Don. And I sat on a barrel and they were topping off. And I just read these names out. And Justin was, I don't think so. No. Hell no. As we went down the list of these names. And we got to G2 and he said, I like that.
I got to raise my hand. I do not know old Saxum, new Saxum.
Oh, well, Justin has a house above their current winery. It's on a hill behind it.
Uh-huh.
It's the next driveway past the one that goes into the winery. And back in the day, he had like a kind of a big garage barn building on the back of his house. And that was his winery. He stored barrels there, and it was very tiny and cramped and crowded. And that's where he made wine. It was only with the advent of the caves that he was able to move all his wine production into a truly classy facility. And at the time, I mean, this is probably, I don't know, 2015, 16, 17 in there somewhere. He confided in me that the reason he'd been able to build those caves was because with my purchase of G2, he didn't have to rush out and buy another vineyard. So I said, great, Justin, I'm glad to help with your capital needs, I always described myself in those days as Justin's bitch. Whatever he wanted. He was the franchise. I knew whose coattails I was riding on. I did my best to keep Justin happy, and we only failed a few times, and mostly it wasn't my fault. But yeah, he was very important. Very important.
I have to throw in here that when you agreed to come on, I did leverage the fact that you and Don Burns was on last month. And I went to Justin and go, I have your favorite vineyards and a guy you've worked with for years, and Don Burns, one of your best friends. And I go, now you got to do the show. So
well, he's going to come back and
agreed to December. Yeah.
He's just going to correct all the things he didn't like that we said.
Right. Yeah. We'll use this for
Justin's great. Justin is he's a very good guy to do business with. He's a very fair, honest businessman. It's again, we owe a lot to Justin for having had some success and being recognized as a vineyard.
Well, he has one of the best business models around, obviously, that I think there's a lot of great winemakers that are trying to emulate it. Don even said when we had him on a month ago, he said it's something everybody wants to achieve, but is it possible to do it? And
well, those were different days back then.
Right.
And they say sometimes that luck is the intersection of preparation and opportunity.
Right.
That's right.
The opportunity that Justin took advantage of is not one that comes along again. I mean, kudos to him for being able to take advantage of it. But when he got his, I mean, he was already famous and successful
2007.
before the 2007 wine.
Oh,
Something weird's
okay.
happening. Is that me or you?
That is somebody's whiteboard just jumped on here. That's not me. I didn't touch anything. Oh,
I
hold
guess we're
on.
about to find
Let me
out.
see if I can get rid of it. There we go.
All right. I'm not touching anything.
It's probably Roger's otter. No, I don't. Never mind. That's a joke. Anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Where were we?
Justin. Well, let me just take us back someplace else, Bill. So when
Yeah,
you're
start
looking
over again.
at
That was
when
very
you're
distracting.
looking at what became G2, and Justin says he likes it because of the hills, which I can appreciate. I assume there was some soil testing before you made a purchase, though.
Nope.
Really?
It was, I didn't know about those things then. It was already growing 46 acres split between Syrah and Zinfandel. I think it was 19 acres of Zinfandel at the time. And it had one block of Grenache and one block of Mourvedre, a couple acres each. But everything else was Syrah, 19 acres of Zinfandel, 2 acres of Grenache, 2 acres of Mourvedre. And it wasn't until after I bought this, and this is kind of the story Don wanted to make sure I was honest about. I buy the place, and very shortly thereafter, I realized I have to have a lot of grapes to sell. So the first person I walked the vineyard with was Justin, and he brings his team along. So he's got a couple of people with him, and we're wandering through the vineyard looking for grapes that Justin would want to buy. Now, for some reason, I thought he was going to buy most of them. I was wrong. At the time, the biggest customer was J. Lore, who was probably taking like 80% of the place. And then there was a list of smaller people that were buying the rest of it. It was farmed high yields, and it was farmed non-organically, mostly planted in 98. And as we got done with Justin looking at everything, he says, I'll take that block of Grenache and I'll take that block of Mourvedre. I said, that's it? That's only 4 acres. I've got 47 acres to sell, Justin. He goes, I think that's all I need right now, but I've noticed some spots. I think we could plant about another 14 acres that I would like. Are you willing to plant 14 acres for me, Bill? I go, sure, Justin. I'd love to plant 14 acres for you. So, while this is all spinning through my head, we're standing on top of a hill, and Justin goes, I think this is your best Syrah block right here. And I'm looking around going, yeah, it's pretty cool. Top of a hill, stressed, straining, gnarly looking. He goes, would you consider selling this to my friend Don? And I'm thinking, who the fuck's Don?
Yeah.
I have no idea who this Don guy is. I wasn't familiar with the inner workings of Saxum at the time. And I go, who is Don? Well, Don has his own label. He makes Turtle Rock wines. You'll love them, Bill. They're great. Sell your very best, most precious piece of dirt in this property to my unknown friend Don here. So I said, okay, for you, anything. And that was the best thing I got pushed into in my life. Don is my biggest customer. We've been working together now, 14 years? At least a dozen. And he's my biggest customer. He has scored 2 100 points for me. Justin only scored 1.
Well, we're not counting.
Oh, and then if you tally up all the 99s and 98s and 97s, boy, has Don done a great job with my grapes, and I'm very grateful to him. But it all came about as if I hadn't been nudged, it never would have crossed my mind to sell to this unknown person making a wine I'd never tasted and never heard of before. But it worked out fantastic. And
so when you go look at a potential vineyard to buy now, or let's just say hypothetically you would go look at one now, what is your process for evaluating that land now versus what it was then when Justin said buy it and you essentially bought it?
I'm looking for less risk. Okay.
What does that mean? Yeah.
Well, it means you find out as much information as you can. Okay. I don't have anyone saying buy this place, buy that place anymore. I've become more confident in my own
Sure.
experiences. But I did buy properties in 22, which is pretty recent. So, I mean, this is a good example. In 22, the last remnant of my old business had an office building that sold. And again, I had learned about 1031 exchanges. And it turns out that a vineyard and an office building are close enough on the commercial property scale that you can swap one for the other.
Oh, no kidding.
In fact, you can do a piece of dirt and plant it. And it's called an improvement exchange, which was probably intended for putting a new roof on the building, but you can use it to put a vineyard in. So I'm running around in 21. I knew all
you and I need to talk.
Yeah. I've been through this. So in 21, I'm running around looking for properties to purchase. And my first thing I looked for were properties in Willow Creek because I'm a Willow Creek kind of guy. Failing that, I was looking for Rhône vineyards. I was looking for stuff that had history that I could examine and look at. And if I was going to do bare dirt, then I was going to make very sure it was the best darn dirt I could get. And as is usually the case, everything that you'd like to be for sale isn't always for sale at the time you're looking. I was also enamored with a vineyard on York Mountain. I thought, I'd love to have some fruit on York Mountain. It's cool. It's different. I wrote a letter to everybody who owns property on York Mountain. Winemakers were coming to me saying, Bill, my friend in York Mountain wants to know who Bill Gibbs is. 21.
What year is this? 21. Okay. So this is before Justin bought property out there.
Actually, it's exactly after he did it.
Oh, okay.
Justin goes, well, I just bought some on York Mountain. This guy had this deal. He had 9 sections. I got a big section. I go, is there any left? He goes, nope. Because that wasn't going to work. So I never found any property on York Mountain, though I did take a serious look at the property that Guillaume and Arnaud later bought right there on 46.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really exciting me at the time. I'm not French. But anyway, what I did find and kept coming back to was a vineyard up on the end of Niderer past Closolene. It was called Rancho de Voladores. And it was all Bordeaux's and 1 block of Syrah, but mostly Merlot, Cab Franc, and Cabernet Sauvignon. And I'm thinking to myself, I know I wanted Rhônes, but this place is right in Willow Creek. It's just around the corner from G2. It's exactly half a mile north of Jamesbury Vineyard. There's one little property in between. The dirt is identical to Jamesbury. I'm thinking, this isn't bad, you know. Who's buying these grapes? And it turns out the lion's share was going to Justin Winery. And I have friends who work at Justin Winery, and they were sharing with us that some years this was their favorite Cabernet, and some years this was their favorite Cabernet Franc. And I'm going, this doesn't sound bad. So time was running out. This is the way these 1031s work. You only have so much time. And this place wasn't big enough to use all the capital I had from the building sale. So I'd also sent letters to all my neighbors at G2. And the one that had the most promise was to my east. Maybe it's to my southeast. In the front of G2, it's the property in the back on the right. And I wanted to buy this hill with a lot line adjustment. He said, no, you have to buy the whole parcel. We talked. And he sold me the property, which, because it abuts G2, is not a new vineyard. It's bigger G2. And its soils are identical to G2 soils. And So I took a chance on more G2 dirt and figured that was a good bet because G2 is recognized and now I can make more G2 fruit. And the Bordeaux thing was just the best vineyard I could find that had customers and was selling. So I said, how bad can that be? And of course, we virus tested everything and soil tested everything, and it all came up looking okay. So I bought it. And in hindsight, I'm glad because I do like Bordeaux wines. I just got out of the habit not thinking about Paso as a great producer of Bordeaux wines. And one of my new customers for the grapes was LXV, whom I had known for years, but never thought of them as wanting to pay my kind of prices for grapes. And they bought a big chunk of my Cab Franc and some Cabernet Sauvignon. And they went out and made Meso by LXV,
Right.
which is probably my favorite Cab Franc anywhere. It's just a delicious wine. And they're fun people to work with. They've had a northern consultant past few years. Their winemaker, Jeff Streekus, is a real nice guy, ex-Onyx, director of wine. Nita and Kunal are just wonderful people. So that part worked out good. I went to Don and said, Don, have you ever made a Cabernet? He goes, well, I bought some Cab in 21. I'm going to make a wine out of it. I said, okay, well, you going to keep that going? He goes, well, why should I? Go, I've got all these grapes to sell now. And talked him into it so that from 22 on, his Bordeaux blend is a G2 North single vineyard Bordeaux blend. And I fortunately met another producer. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Pius.
Yes, Pius, good Bordeaux's.
Good
I'm going
Bordeaux.
there. I'm going there in a week.
Anthony Versace's story coming out of Dow the way he did is one that he should tell. But the publishable part is over a decade as their estate assistant winemaker, but you can imagine how many punch downs Daniel Dow did.
Right,
So
right.
This is a case where the assistant winemaker is the guy really with the hands-on making the wine. And some of those Dows are expensive, but Patrimony and Soul of the Lion are just very nice wines. So I was very interested when I met Anthony. I said, Anthony, you're going to need some good grapes. And so he's bought Cab Franc, Merlot, and Cabernet Sauvignon from me.
Wait, is his Crown Point yours?
I actually don't know where he has put the grapes.
Okay.
So I won't make any claims. And I have this problem with all my customers. Occasionally, they label their back label with the source, but then we have customers who don't make that practice. You know, Guillaume and Torin, they never told me where the grapes went. They just put them in some wine, make it better.
Right.
They all have the same choice. Do we make one really good wine or make all our wines a little better?
So
No.
that brings up an interesting. How does the designation process work? Like, is it permission or just for people here that don't know? How does that happen?
It's always any use of the vineyard's name should be done with the vineyard's owner permission. Okay. But it's pretty simple to put an ID on the back label that 25% of these grapes came from G2. No one's going to object to that. I'd let anybody do that who bought grapes from me. Though I was surprised once because my grapes sometimes get sold on a secondary market. When one of my customers sells some grapes to somebody else and my name pops up on, in this particular case, it was a bottle of white wine from Field Recordings. And I go, how the hell did G2 grapes get in there? And I tracked it down, and I had sold some Grenache Blanc to Levo, who thought he had a little more than he needed. So he sold some to Andrew, and it was not a problem. It just was curious.
Have your contract terms since changed to address that?
I don't have much in the way of contracts.
Okay.
I used to say I had no contracts, that I just ran my business on a handshake and a smile. That turned out to be inadequate for crop insurance. So now I have a crop insurance contract that is literally 2 lines. It says, so-and-so winery will buy all the grapes from such and such blocks at G2 at this price. That's all it says. And if they sign that, then the crop insurance knows I've sold the grapes and knows that I have a price for the grapes that allows me to jack up what they'll insure.
Yeah.
Because they limit how much you can actually, I can't insure my grapes for what I sell them for. I think by the time you figure it out, I'm insured for about 30% of my revenue.
That's it?
Yeah, on crop insurance.
Oh, that's criminal.
It's not criminal. It's way better than nothing.
Well, it's better than nothing, but come on.
And it's relatively inexpensive because it's subsidized by the Department of Agriculture.
Now,
Oh, got it.
but I do have a beef, Bill. I talked to other vineyard owners in the Willow Creek district, and you're pretty much every bottle price keeps going up, and you're setting the price more or less. I'm just making fun of it. I don't really.
The more I got into this business, the more I thought that independent farmers were getting the short end of the stick. I mean, not just for personal selfish reasons, which of course they are, but I didn't think anybody was being adequately compensated for the weather risk that we take on the annual crops.
Absolutely.
So the best place for a vineyard is to be owned by a winery. And that's because the gross margin on a successful wine project is huge. And the percent of cost that the grapes represent is small. So that if you're running a successful wine brand and your grapes are fluctuating in price, they might go from 10% to 15% to 9%, little tiny fluctuations. It's not going like 100% of your revenue or, for the farmer, I like to think that I get one of the higher prices for G2 fruit of grapes sold in Paso Robles.
Deservingly so.
Absolutely.
I lost money in 2024. So people go, how can you have the highest price for grapes? You should be getting rich. I go, no, because we only farm 2 tons an acre. And if you don't have big yields to make up the difference, I have a neighbor over here at Heart Stone. I think he's up to 4,000 a ton. But he gets 4 tons an acre. That's not so bad.
But isn't your model like ultra premium fruit, right? You're trying to get concentration. It's not volume. And when I was reading the bio, it's like J. Lohr is interested in volume. No slight on them. You're trying to make fruit that's exceptional.
Well, in all fairness to J. Lohr, they make a lot of different wines.
Right. They
own West Side properties, and they make some.
There's some very good wines there.
Seven Oaks isn't the only Cabernet they make, kind of thing.
Right.
Just in case J. Lohr is listening, I have friends at J. Lohr.
No, I do. I've been there.
I don't sell them any fruit, but that's okay. They don't need it.
Their premium wines are good.
But there's a balance. One half of me wants to make the very best grapes that can come off my property. And I have been taught by the experts that this means low yields and concentration. At the same time, I'd like to have a business that doesn't bleed to death.
Got it.
So there's a balance. And we don't get rapacious about it, but weather is the huge adjudicator of how good a year is going to be. So like last year was the strangest year in my 14. Long and cool. People had trouble getting their fruit ripe, and there never was a desiccation event. The crop never got shrunk by the heat. There was no significant heat during the year. And as a result, it was common to hear across Paso that yields were coming in high. Okay. All my fruit got ripe enough, and all my customers took all the fruit, so it actually turned out to be a good year for me. I have survivor's guilt for all the people that had terrible problems. But 24 was the opposite. Combination of fruit set problems and shatter problems and heat problems. I ended up without enough fruit. I think I averaged 1.5 tons, which isn't enough to pay for the farming costs for the year. Crop insurance, God bless them, pushed us into the black, and that's why I love crop insurance. So I didn't have to tell my wife we'd actually lost money. But there's more to the formula than just the price of the grapes. It's also how much you grow of the grapes and how good or bad the year was.
Bill, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I don't go to Vegas anymore. My gambling needs are completely taken care of.
Understood. What's the current composition of G2?
Mostly dirt, a little limestone under the dirt.
I'm sorry. I mean, in terms of what varieties?
I think I misunderstood you intentionally. Um, let's see. Syrah is probably still my biggest single variety, and Grenache is a close second, and Mourvedre would be in third place. The 19 acres of Zinfandel are gone, turned into Grenache or Mourvedre with grafting. Then after you get through the Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre, then it kind of breaks up. I have 3 acres of Grenache Blanc planted in 22. I have 1.9 acres shared between Claret Blanche and Roussanne. I have a little under an acre of Carignan, close to an acre of Touriga Nationale.
Oh.
These were all things Justin wanted to play with.
Is that where he gets his Touriga Nacional?
Well, he probably gets it from multiple sources.
Okay.
Now, the one I forgot to mention was Graciano, and Graciano probably belongs in there after Mourvedre in 4th place. To this day, I still think of it as Mourvedre because that's what we thought we were planting.
Right.
but it's not Mourvedre, it's Graciano. And Don loves to work with Graciano. He probably likes it more than most of my customers. He makes wonderful wines with his Graciano. My complaint is that it's a bit heat sensitive, so that has a glass jaw kind of thing. Someone says heat and clusters start shriveling up. So we put shade cloth on both sides of it. We pamper it, and we hope that, there's a reasonable crop left.
How this year was early bud break, right?
About a month ahead by some counts.
Yeah. So how's it looking right now?
There's an old joke about a man who jumped off the top of the Empire State Building. And at each floor, people could hear him saying, "So far, so good." And the parallel is, we never know till the end. It's like, so far, so good. We haven't had anything terrible happen yet. We had a little frost in some of the very cool places. Nothing so much that would trigger a measurable loss of fruit. We're just coming up on fruit set, which is a pivotal time in the year. And we have some warm weather coming up starting today. I'm hoping some of my Grenache and Syrah will all get a good fruit set in nice warm weather without wind and cold and damp. My Mourvedre is significantly behind, but then it normally is. But for some reason, it seems like more than usual. I've got all these. You see a Grenache block growing up next to a Mourvedre block, and it looks like these are half as old, which might actually be true this year. But they'll come along, I'm sure. It's just really, we're still not done being afraid of frost. It could happen, though it doesn't look like it's going to. We're in May and warm weather's coming. Maybe we're past the serious frost problem, and we can start switching my stay awake at night and worry about over to heat. But my vineyard manager, great guy named Daniel Martinez, he told me just yesterday, he goes, "Bill, I don't think we're going to have a hot year." I said, "Good. I hope you're right."
Bill, every month when we interview a winemaker, one of the questions we ask them is, what's the most difficult part of making wine? The majority of them, a few of them will say selling it because that's just not their skill set or why they got into it. But the vast majority of them say the weather, the unpredictability, the farming part of it. That's exclusively what you have to deal with. Like that must be
Sure.
heavy at times.
It's my biggest problem, other than winemakers themselves. Gotta love them though. My customers kind of divide up into winemakers who are also expert farmers and very strongly opinionated, winemakers who are growing into being expert farmers with the help of consultants and experience, winemakers who think they are expert farmers but are not, and then honest winemakers who say, we don't know anything about farming, and we'd like some guidance here. And we always used to just tell them, our default is the James Berry standard. It's not a bad one. You know, you'll hear us talk about terms like 2-1 none, which is you get 2 clusters on a long shoot, you get 1 cluster on a medium shoot, you get no clusters on a short shoot as a first way of balancing the crop on a plant. And that's usually what most of the experienced guys want to talk about, is how to balance the crop load against the size of the plant, the health of the plant, the vigor of the plant. We're not quite to that point yet. It'll be another few weeks, maybe a month. Right now, the problem is canopy control. We've had some late rain, not a lot, maybe 1.5 inches in the 2 rainfalls we've had in the last month or so, which is kind of nice. We're fighting mildew. We're spraying to make sure it doesn't get into the vineyards strong for later on. But if the canopy gets too big, the way these plants work is that they cool themselves through transpiration. They take water out of the ground and evaporate it through their leaves, and they cool themselves. Well, the bigger their canopy is, the more water they need to cool themselves. And if you have a big bonker canopy, if you have a wet winter, a lot of water in the ground, the plants all go crazy, let's get big, you end up with plants that are not conditioned to survive heat waves. And then, of course, we have this whole issue of water stress as a quality issue. At the appropriate time during the growing season, we have to make sure they want more water than they can have. It's not about just making them fat and happy. You get big, juicy grapes that no one wants to buy. So it's incredibly complicated. I don't claim to be the farming expert. I've just done this enough to talk about it.
You mean you don't want to give all the dogs the biscuits they want?
Yeah, you got to train them.
Right.
Okay, for the not a farming expert, how many, you can answer humbly, how many 100-point wines have you contributed to now?
Oh, just Don's, 3. Don's 2 and Saxum's 1.
3.
If we're talking about Jeb Dunnick, who is probably the critic who focuses the most on Paso Robles and deserves a special spot in our hearts.
Amen.
Even if his scores might be a point or 2 higher than other people's.
Amen. Well, I think it may be a palate thing because James Suckling is he's a Italian old world guy, just different palates, I think.
Sure, but I mean, since you asked that question, if you don't mind me, where am I here? I have some notes on this topic. My memory is not so good, but since you're giving me an opportunity to brag just a bit.
Are you going to share something?
No, I'm not.
Okay. I
threatened you with that, but I can't find them at the moment. It's one of those days. These are just notes I wanted to glance at. Turtle Rock, 2 100-point Syrahs in 19 and 22, a 99 and 18, 2 98s in 14 and 21, and 2 97s in 16 and 17. His 1498 was the highest scored wine out of G2 for probably 5 years, which was kind of cool. His Claude's Cuvée is frequently up to 100% G2 grapes, and he's had 98s and 97s. His G2 North, which is the single vineyard Cabernet with Cabernet Franc, he's had a 97 and a 96, and he's only been making it for 2 years, released. So I'm very proud of Don. And of course, you can probably guess Saxum's highlights, 100s, 99s, 98s with his G2, Heart Stone, 98s, 97s. Wine Enthusiast, number 3 best wine in the world for 2025 was the Saxum 22 Heart Stone. I thought that was pretty cool. And there's always been a fair amount of G2 in Hex, which has 99s, 100s. We talked about unicorns. I wanted to mention the Andromeda G2, only made in 1 year. If you ever have a chance to drink it, I recommend it.
What vintage was that, Bill?
That was the 19. That was before he bought Slide Hill, and I was still selling him grapes.
Yes. I think I have some of those 19 still in my cellar.
There's Stanley's 21 Moment of Inertia, the I. It's not all G2, but I think that G2 is what pushed him up to 100.
Can I stop you there?
Oh, that's a good place to stop.
No, I'm just saying that. Well, of course we promise an hour.
Bragging.
If you're okay with going on for a while because you're so fascinating, But you
You can
brought
tell I
up
wear bifocals and on my screen's rather high.
no. I mean, we're
Yeah.
novices here. We're learning that you are a teacher, and we're learning so much. But you brought up Stanley, you had other winemakers you worked with, right? Justin, Don, and how he was kind of new to the scene. What did you?
Nobody.
Correct. That's what I'm trying to say, in not a rude way, because I like the guy and I like their wines a ton. I'm just saying, what did you recognize that was in him?
Well, first of all, the wine was good. If the wine's not good, you have other problems to solve.
Right.
But the wine was good. And the story is good. At that time, they both had their full-time jobs. They were commuting here, working part-time.
Absolutely.
I think he was in Nakora at the time, making wine in the back with Scott Hawley next door. These are not bad influences, all, by the way. Yet, even though they are influences, what Stanley and others do after they've taught is they go their own way. And Stanley has chosen his own path different from Scott and Nick. Stanley is very big on what he calls balance. He doesn't want a big wine too big. He doesn't want a small wine too small. He doesn't want overly acid. I mean, he probably has the best palate of anyone I've ever drunk wine with. And he's someone that I really try to avoid drinking wine with because we drink too much whenever I drink wine with Stanley. It's always a problem. It's so easy to drink wine with Stanley. And in his analysis of what he's drinking is as good or better than anyone's. So all these things were immediately recognizable when I met him, liked his wines. His wife was lovely. Heard this story, these hardworking people trying to get it, to start a new brand. It just makes you want to help them. Both Hispanics, which was kind of unusual up here at the time. Then they moved on. They quit their day jobs. They went full in. They found a little place to have their brand after Nick asked them to leave. Their tastings in the back on tables, I think, were getting more business than his tables in the front, and they weren't paying rent.
It was bad look. Yeah, got it.
So he and the place he's ended up now is I shouldn't use the word lovely. It's kind of a little industrial spot off Golden Hill and
next to one of your other friends, Andy.
I like Andy a lot, but Andy's a new friend. But I mean, the history of that little industrial section, goes back to Garrison and Hug, and I think Bodega de Edgar was in there for a while. It's a place many places have moved through. It's not sitting on a vineyard looking at something like my camera is. You're looking at wooden fences that are blocking the street noise and the Lowe's across the street or something. But still, once you're inside, you're with lovely people drinking lovely wine, and that's all that really matters.
Well, we've been blessed to have Elaine on here, and I've talked to Stanley there at the wine at his facility, and lovely guy, super smart, and I wish him all the luck. And I just was curious how that relationship started. But yeah, we wish him all the luck.
They're both very hardworking people.
Absolutely.
And Elena's sister, Yudi, runs the tasting room.
Right.
She's another lovely, hardworking person. You feel like you're with family when you go there tasting. It's just it's really what I advise wineries whenever they ask my opinion as a drinker. You guys are selling experiences. Make sure it's a good one.
Right.
It's
absolutely.
It's not just a
and
meritocracy.
That's what
about wine.
Paso sells to everybody, is that unique connection that you don't find in any other wine region. Really, it's personal, very personal.
I didn't pick Don Burns exactly, but he's grown to be my biggest customer and my biggest success. I did pick Stanley, and he's grown to be my second biggest customer. So, it's gone from me helping him to him helping me.
Right.
So I appreciate that. This whole idea of helping little guys get bigger can be a good business plan for me.
Bill, do you have a waiting list
For grapes?
Yeah.
Not this year. Not this year. This year, I didn't so much lose a lot of customers as they all just hunkered down. You know, everyone got more grapes than they wanted last year, and they're all terrified by the press that says no one's going to drink alcohol ever again.
Right.
And the big whammy last year wasn't drinking trends; it was the loss of Canada as a trade partner.
Yeah.
That was the 30% whammy that then blew up into the harvest mess we had last year. But all those surplus grapes are still on the market this year. So all these factors are making like a perfect storm for it being a hard time to sell grapes. But if you find anybody out there who needs a ton of something, I may be able to find them a ton of something. But it's all good. This is also a great year for us to redevelop blocks that we've been postponing. So I'm going to be pulling out about 8 or 9 acres of marginal blocks that we just can't get a good quality off of anymore. We just can't get a good yield off of anymore. It's time to pull them out, let them lay fallow for a while. And when I planted the 14 acres in 22, that was my thought, was I'll be able to have grapes coming online about now that will take the place of the grapes I plan to redevelop and pull out and replant. So roughly it's kind of working out on timing.
So Justin is expanding his estate, right? And is that impacting your?
Well, it's my least favorite thing in the world. Wineries should not be allowed to own vineyards. They should have to buy from people like me. And once they buy from people like me, they should never be allowed to buy a vineyard.
Well, that's because they were in a band and then they go, I'm going to go solo. No. Right?
Well, in reality, the number one reason I lose customers is they grow, they're successful, they buy a vineyard, and off they go.
Yeah.
Andremoli bought Slide Hill. I love Jim. We still have lunch once in a while, but he doesn't need my grapes. Closolene, we sold him grapes for like 10 years. And believe me, he's like the most persnickety guy you could ever grow grapes for. In fact, the side story is one day he called me years ago and said, Bill, am I a pain in the ass? He said it with a French accent. I can't do
right.
French. And I said, Guillaume, why do you ask? And he goes, well, I just left this vineyard where I buy grapes, and he told me I was a pain in the ass. I go, well, Guillaume, I can't lie to you. You are a pain in the ass, but I love you. And we do love Guillaume. He cares so much. He works so hard. He's up at 4 a.m. in the morning. You get up at 6 and you find you've got 3 emails from Guillaume already about what he needs done in the vineyard. But yeah, well, he bought another vineyard for his project with Rhône. He leased out the vineyard next to the one he's developing on Niderer, and suddenly he didn't need my grapes anymore. So I lost another nice guy. I'm still in their clubs.
Right. No, the guy makes great wine, right?
Yeah. You don't want to just drink all one wine. So Saxum, loved the guy, but he bought Cayucas Canyon, and Cayucas Canyon is fully online now. He bought V2, which I did not complain about his name. It was the name of the ranch before he bought it. It was called the V2 Ranch. You know, who's going to hassle old Justin? G2, V2, but I've been replaced. So to his credit, we've been planning this for 5 years. And to his credit, he would sit down with me and we would plan what he was going to drop the next year and listen to my opinions about what I wanted him to drop sooner and what I wanted him to drop later. It was my choice that he dropped Heart Stone before he dropped more fruit from G2. I think Heart Stone has its own little recognizable name, and I'm hoping that the people buying Heart Stone now, they've all said that they would keep a single vineyard designate going forward. And I wasn't sure who was most worthy of Heart Stone. So half of the grapes are going to top and half of the grapes are going to rise. And we'll see what they do with it. Maybe the winner gets the whole thing.
That sounds like a good blind tasting to me.
It's not all that big here.
No,
but anyway, so 20.
I think when we found out that you work with people you think they're going to do right by your fruit, that was a fascinating story that I learned years ago. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to talk to you. But that you're very smart about.
You're lucky. It's nice to have choices. So
Right.
the 23 Heart Stone will be the last vintage from Saxum.
Oh, really?
Yes, 24 and 25 went to Top and Rise, and we should be seeing some wines out of them soon. Because of this and with other reductions, Saxum was my third biggest customer in 25. And in 2024 and 2025, G2 was the last outside source that Saxum was buying from, which I take some pride in. But 25 was the last year we will sell grapes to Saxum. So there will be no more G2 Saxums after 2025.
So I have a question though. Like,
Yes, sir.
gracias?
Gracias.
Well, with a T. Gracias? Any fruit,
Whatever.
any fruit from your vineyards in there?
How would I know?
Oh, there we go.
He probably, I mean, if I had to guess, I've always thought that Broken Stone was a bit of what was left over after he'd made his blends. When he makes his blends, I think a blended wine is the best representation of the winemaker's palate.
Right.
Because he's really putting the components into the wine that he wants to taste and he wants to drink. And there's no getting away from the fact that people like Don and Stanley and Justin are making wines that are very unique, not just simple, throw it in a bin and let it go. So these blends that they make, Justin takes all these different components and makes his hex. He chooses which of the G2 grapes he wants to put into G2's blend. He just doesn't throw them all in. And when he's done with this process, he has grapes that are left over, not because they're worse grapes. He just didn't need any more of it in this blend. So I've always guessed, this is not official, but I've guessed that one way he took care of these excellent grapes that just didn't make the official blend was they went into the Broken Stones, which usually seem to have a wider mix of varieties and such. And he could be doing the same thing with whatever you call that wine. Gracias.
Gracias.
All I could tell you, it was included in the fall shipment, and the best $12 bottle of wine I've ever had.
I don't remember the last time I thought this particular Saxum wine wasn't any good.
Right.
I thought the Bookers needed more age than other of his vineyards, but that was about the worst I came to a criticism.
The Gracias, you absolutely could open up right away, and it was drink ready. Yeah, it's good.
Do you guys, is Wine Berserker still a thing?
What is that?
Good question. I haven't heard of that in a while.
Yeah, Wine Berserkers is supposedly the most popular internet forum for wine people. And at one time I was involved with it casually, and it was huge. They're very big on French wines. They're very big on wines that impress people. The Paso crowd was always a small subgroup of this overall thing. And they used to put a group together and come to Paso, the Paso wine lovers inside the Wine Berserkers. And one year they organized to taste every Saxum wine. This might have been 16 or 17. It took 3 days. I hosted one of the dinner events. Saxum hosted one of the dinner events, and one was in Templeton at what's the name of that restaurant? The nice one, good one. McPhee's. There you go. So each dinner was like 15 different Saxums to taste. It was a lot of work. And I invited Stanley as my guest for this thing. It was still his early years, and he was excited about having a chance to taste all the Saxums made up to that point. We got to try I think it was a 98 Linny Colado that Justin had made. All sorts of old unicorns. And it's the same thing. All his wines are great. So what can you say?
Hey, Bill, we're getting deep into it, way past an hour. We got a lot of questions. I'd
You're in
like
control.
to open it up. And by the way, I want to acknowledge the first time we've had another winery owner join our group, Nita. Hi, Nita. Good to see
everyone.
you again.
Sorry, I joined a little bit late. But
We'd
Don't
like
tell her
to.
what I said about her.
No. Be careful, Bill. I have things to say about you.
He said you had the best Cab Franc he's ever had. Anyways,
That's very kind.
let's go ahead and open up. Raise your hand. We'll
Hey,
call on
Mike.
you.
Mike, real quick before we do, I think Nita said she had some words for Bill.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Nita.
geez, no, no, I did not say that, Jason. But I do have a very interesting anecdote. And the reason it came to my mind is the hat, the hat that Bill is wearing, which looks like a GZ.
No, I
for
fixed it.
G2.
This one's fixed.
No, it's not even close. We need to talk, Bill.
Come on.
It's a little bit better than that. So, Bill walks into LXV's tasting room, wearing a previous version of this hat that literally said GZ, and something told me that, based on my conversation with him, that this is the famous Bill Gibbs. And I had a puppy who's here right now, and I handed the puppy to a club member who had just joined, pretending that it's a perk to join a club is to take care of our puppies. And I said, I need to talk to this gentleman. And we spoke for about 10, 15 minutes, and I convinced him to come to the vineyard the next day. And that's how I cornered him into planting for us, which is.
I was going to say, Nita, it was a piece of dirt the next day. It wasn't. It wasn't.
Yeah, it was a piece of dirt. Actually,
and I just started a farming
company.
company in 19. So
Say
we
that
had the
again, Bill?
honor of working with Nita and Kunal to get them started on their own vineyard.
But if I could just show, this is what Bill planted. I don't know if you can see it, but
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
this is what Bill planted here. This is
Yeah,
all the
beautiful.
Gibbs.
I've had the pleasure to be at the farm. Yeah, that beautiful, great place to go tasting, right, Keith and Louie? Who's got a question? So, are you done? Are you okay, Nita?
Oh no, I'm good. I'm good. I just
Okay.
wanted to.
Jen's got her
back
hand
if
up.
I could.
Just want to
And
be
then-
respectful.
Jen
Okay,
and then Demetra.
Jennifer, go ahead.
Hi, Bill. Really nice to meet you. I was curious because whenever I see G2, I'm like, "Ah, I need this wine. I'm curious about how your relationship evolved with Orion and with Peck and Burl.
Well, Peck and Burl was technically a secondary market sale initially. I never sold them grapes. They bought their grapes from Justin, or they were gifted to them from Justin.
Well,
They were-
former Justin employees, that's why, right?
They were, when it started, they were working inside Saxum as interns. So I go, what? You're giving my grapes to strange people again to make wine with? He goes, yeah. And we tasted and go, this wine's pretty good. So they did this a couple of times. I forget the exact years they made wine, but I had the opportunity to speak to them recently, and they're back buying grapes this year. So they're going to make a G2 Graciano.
Oh, wow. They do make good wine.
They do.
I actually did a blind tasting with a lot of, I won't even say the other names, but some premium labels, and their wine won won the blind tasting.
Well, and their G2s have been excellent representations of the vineyard and the fruit they were given.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And what about Emercy, Orion?
Well, he started out when I met him. Where did I meet him? He might have been working at Dialecta when I met him, which was literally next door to Heart Stone.
Yes.
And we started selling him grapes at Dialecta when it was his company, his business. And all my daughters always wanted to come over and see the cute tattooed guy next door. This was years ago. My daughters are now mature adults. But yeah. So when he left to start Emercy, my interpretation of our relationship was the grapes had been being sold to Orion. So we sent the grapes off with Orion to Emercy. And they bought Zinfandel and Syrah farmers for a number of years. His new partner is they're not that new, but the partner he started Emercy with is quite the businessman, and realized that my grapes might be a little pricey for their targeted market price.
Business model, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Usually if we get too far away from 100 times retail, even I'll talk to the winemaker and say, you're not going to be very happy with the profit margin on this if you keep buying really expensive grapes and putting it into a $40 wine. And so MRC and I will not be doing grape sales in 26. He just said it's a tough market. I can't buy expensive Syrah from you anymore. So I'll miss him, but I won't forget him.
I will throw in real quick, Bill, that I did talk to Dylan Peccancino about a month ago, and he wanted me to say give you his best. But yeah, he had been working with Justin and Dawn. He worked for specifically for a long time. They're big fans, and they do make great wines. And unfortunately, they're not doing a lot of Paso anymore. But good guys, young, very young. It's
Well, we should also just mention people that aren't my biggest customers, but people like Jacob Toft are a lot of fun.
mm-hmm.
I've known him and Kelly, and I've been in his club since he was inside Denner. And Royal Nonsuch buys some Syrah from us, as well as making the Rise wines. So I get to work with Anthony on 2 different fronts. I'm going to forget everybody here, but I've already mentioned Pius and Top and those guys. Let's talk about the little guys just for a second.
Jason Bouchon, his Analogique.
Yeah, right.
Yes, but it's been a couple of years since he bought fruit.
Okay.
Same thing. If you want to make a $60 wine, it doesn't pencil out to have G2 grapes, at least not in their current pricing. Come back next year, who knows? But I've got some very special little customers. One would be Terranian. Now, Terranian is Alex Kemp, who is the winemaker at Brecken, who's my other neighbor out here at Heart Stone.
Right. Yeah.
And he has his own label, Terranian, which features a G2 single vineyard wine that's worth a look. I think it's a Grenache. Another one would be Jonah and Gianna. Their label is Rhône.
Yeah, they haven't launched yet, though. They're about to.
They haven't launched anything, but
Yes.
they get
Is this the one we talked about, Jason?
Yes.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
I think they started before they were 21, actually.
Right. How did they do this, Bill? Like, how? I'm so baffled by this.
I think they had to card themselves before they could taste the wines. Or
Right.
something.
Right.
But young people like this are just precious. You know, you want their
Yes.
dreams to come true. You want them to be successful. And in the meantime, not quit their day jobs at Epic and Booker and all the other places they have to
Right.
slave to survive. I even have a kosher customer, a winery called Shiraz. And you probably will never see their wines because they ship it back to New York or something where there's a large kosher population demanding of fine California kosher wines. So I'm perfectly open to strange interpretations.
Right. You know, Jason and I just kind of had discussions like, how did 2 young people like that open up a vineyard or a tasting room and get launched? It's a huge investment, and you got to have
Root
that.
for 'em.
Well, you avoid the capital expenditure as long as possible. I mean, you can sell a couple hundred cases without a tasting room and without, investing in something.
Right.
But once you take a rent, you better have a regular income.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
The best advice in business is don't spend more than you make. It works for about any business, and it's really basic.
So
You
I'm
can
going
pull off
to move forward. Dimitro, what do you got?
Hi, Bill. I'm a greedy person, so I have 2 questions. One question is like more on the business side, is that when you sell your grapes, is it more like acreage or tonnage? The second question is, I had a privilege number of years ago of having a hayride in the military track on G2. Do you still have it? And what is the story for the other people about this military truck?
I think I got this straight. Okay. I sell by section or block. The customer says, I say to the customer, these are your rows. You will buy all the grapes from those rows, and I will charge you by ton. So it's priced by ton, but it's allocated by geography.
Mm.
Okay. And this allows me to share some of the farming risk with them. Because if I accidentally grow more grapes than they wanted, there will be no one to sell them to in October. You know, it's impossible to sell grapes in October. You have 2 days. We're going to pick them on Thursday. I've got 2 days to sell them to somebody. So they agree to take all the grapes. But the pricing is per ton. I think I answered your question on that.
Yeah.
So now the Army truck was inspired by Justin Smith's Unimog. He has a Mercedes ex-Swiss Army truck kind of thing. And I went out and looked at having something similar be our working truck, and they were so expensive. I go, this is crazy. So that switched me over to US models. And I found on eBay a what's called an LMTV, a 1998 Stewart and Stevenson light medium tactical vehicle, I think is what it stands for. And this company was in Kentucky, and this was his business. He went to Army auctions where he would buy things sight unseen for a pittance, and he would put together working trucks that he could then sell to people as working trucks. So I said, what the hell? And I bought it for, I think, $16,000. And he threw in the trailer for an extra $1,500. And he sent me videos showing me that it ran forward, ran backwards, and stopped. Seemed like an honest guy. And an equivalent flatbed truck used was going to cost me over $150 for like an F-350 something. So I thought, this is a great deal. We get it here. It needed some work, you know, a couple thousand in shipping, a couple thousand in initial mechanical repairs, but I'm still under 20,000. And we've used the truck every year since. And it gets a lot of attention. If you're feeling the least bit depressed about anything, come over. I'll let you drive the truck down the street. People get out of your way. They show you respect. The horn is impressive. Honk, honk. You know, and these songs run through your head like Convoy and that Bandit song about
Convoy. I haven't heard that one in a long time. Yeah.
East. I'm an old guy. Remember the Eastbound and Down, Loaded Up and Trucking?
Yeah.
These songs just go with that truck.
I'm up there with you too, Bill. So.
As for rides, usually what we do is, this is a benefit we give to our customers if they want to bring club members in. A couple times wineries have combined it with an auction item at a must charity event. And if somebody buys a package, I mean, they have to get my permission that I'll support them, but we'll try and put it together. We throw hay bales in the back, just like you experienced, and we'll drag a dozen people all over G2. Usually end up on top of a hill with a shade table and some wine to drink.
Hey,
so that still goes on. Just go through my list of winery customers and talk one of them into putting on an event.
Let's try to hit some of the questions, Jason, because we're getting kind of long in the tooth here.
Tisha had her hand up for a while.
Yeah, right. Tisha.
Well, it was more of a comment than a question. You've given me a lot to talk about in my morning meeting tomorrow with Guillaume. So I didn't know if you want me to relay any messages back to him.
Tell him I miss him. I miss Guillaume.
I will let him know. He is actually in Knoxville doing an event, but we will have our morning meeting. So I didn't know if you wanted me to relay any messages to him.
I think the message is that French guy.
Yeah, that French guy.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'll always love that French guy. He was just such a nice guy to do business with, other than the pickiness about farming.
He's picky about everything. Trust me, I deal with it on a daily basis.
The way to penetrate Closolene is through Aurelian.
Yes.
And Aurelian is just a great guy who really likes to drive the Army truck.
Yes.
So whenever I needed something, I always call up Aurelian and say, "Hey, I'll let you drive the Army truck."
his close right-hand man for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tisha. Laura?
Hi, this has been fascinating. I'm sorry, I had to jump off for a work call for a little bit, so I apologize if this was covered, but you piqued my interest in answering the question about that you're selling by tonnage and within the certain rows and blocks. How much does your customer dictate to you how much tonnage is coming off of there, about how much you guys are culling? And or I don't know, I apologize, I'm not a farmer, so I don't know the right terminology, because you can change the amount of tonnage that you have based on how you're farming it.
Absolutely. The first thing that I will admit is we work with a viticulturist named Caitlin Pierini. Lovely woman, worked with her for decades now. My vineyard manager now is Daniel. These are very experienced, knowledgeable people, and they are crap at estimating how much grape is hanging on a vine. It's just, we never get it right. Never get it right, but we try. Officially, our target is that was established by Justin originally, which is 2.7 tons an acre, plus or minus half a ton. Now that means if we come in anywhere between 2.2 and 3.2, that's an acceptable range for estimation and variation. But we have customers like Stanley among them who have a passion for 1 ton an acre. And at 1 ton an acre, I don't mean literally, but just really likes to drop fruit. And as do many of the winemakers. So we do have a discussion that goes on about, come on, I got to get to 2.5. I got to get at least to 2. I've got to get over 2, but we really don't know what's there. We're guessing. How big is the cluster? How much does the cluster weigh? Did we cut off the wings? Did we cut off the tips? Stanley likes a cluster to be about the size of his hand, but all my farm workers have little hands. So that's a bad idea.
Right.
In fact, all my farm workers are from a village in, I think it's Oaxaca, and they don't speak Spanish. They speak Mixteca. So I have a foreman who speaks Mixteca and Spanish, to my vineyard manager who speaks Spanish and English. And we started a farming company in 19 primarily so we could have one crew, the same crew, all year long. Because it is so wonderful to always be working with exactly the same people. And they may change one here, one there every year, but we're not having strangers come in and do farming for us because what we do is so different than the commercial farming on the east side. Everything from harvest all the way back to pruning is done very different than the normal commercial farming. What was the question I was trying to answer?
No, I think this is
culling. Yes. So
great.
It's negotiable, and sometimes we get it right. Scott Hawley is the best. Scott counts the clusters and estimates the weights, and we come in at 2.6, 2.7 tons an acre. If Scott's estimated it, you could take it to the bank. Stanley insisted we go back and drop more. We came in at 1.5 tons an acre. When Stanley, we shouldn't have dropped more.
Yeah, great.
And in hindsight, that was true, but at the time it was hard to say. I guess I should hire Scott to come do all my estimating.
There you go. He makes some good wine.
I like his wines. Very much.
So then you're making me think about the different varietals, right? You've got a Petite Syrah that's tiny. You've got other great. So the different varietals.
No Petite Syrah.
Okay. I apologize. You don't have Petite Syrah. So just in general.
I had some. I pulled it out last year.
different varieties. I know.
They're all different. They're all different.
Different varieties. They're gonna weigh different, right?
Well, the problem is I mentioned much earlier the issue of a desiccation event. We expect about 30% loss of weight due to heat and desiccation in the fruit. That doesn't mean it's a raisin, but it means what you see, the cluster with its 100 grapes on it, they're slightly smaller, the skins aren't as taut, and they don't weigh as much. It can go completely to what we call fluffy, where they weigh almost nothing, all the way to raisins, which nobody really wants. And until we harvest it, we really don't know what we've got. Other times the fruit is very heavy and very dense. So there can be plus or minus 100% variation. Well, 100%, plus or minus 70% variation in the weight of a cluster based upon its 15-year average, because we never get an average year, which is why averages are kind of useless. but we should keep talking about them all the time like they matter. So yeah, we go out and we weigh a grape, we weigh a cluster, we multiply, but there's a lot of variation. And again, it goes back to, I think, two of the biggest things that we do. One is organic farming, which means you don't just pump in as much chemicals as the plant needs. You don't have rows and rows of perfectly overfed plants. You have struggling plants, and everyone that we sell to says the struggling plants are the best. And then the slopes we farm on. Slopes have thin soils. They're close to the stones. They're close to the rocks. Again, the plant has to struggle. They don't retain as much water. They don't retain as much nutrients. And out of the struggle comes grapes of character. This is what we hope for.
Right.
But it also doesn't give us much of a pad. If we were growing 5 tons plus or minus a ton, I could live with that. 2 tons plus or minus a ton kind of sucks. That runs from 0 to up to something. But yeah,
it makes really good juice. Thank you very much.
It's very hard, and we do the best we can with it each year.
So we probably should wrap. I have one question. We had Scott on. You mentioned him numerous times. He was here in February, I believe. And he, just asking your opinion, he had said if he had moved to an elevated model, meaning ultra premium offerings, this is a business question that he didn't think I heard this. I posed a question to him that somebody else, he had told a wine tasting group that it'd be a struggle. Do you agree?
Absolutely. To make money at low volumes, you have to have a premium product.
Right.
To make money with a lower priced product, you need high volumes. And certainly the biggest money in wine is made by high volume sales of $20 wines. They make millions and millions and millions of dollars profit doing that. But if you're a bootstrap company trying to grow into something, it's much easier to grow into a premium winery like Torrin, if you have all the skills and all the connections and all that stuff, than it is to try and become a Dow, for example, with their distribution model. I mean, most of the wine Dow makes and sells, we don't even see. They make a $20 cab that they sell millions of cases of. Their estate wine business looks like a very successful ultra premium business, which it probably is, but that's a small fraction of the big Dow.
Right. That's why I tell people there are only 3,500 cases of the premium, right? Maybe it's higher now. I don't know. But I was a Soul Lion initial member. I love those cabs. But that's not what Dow became. But if you look, like the same with J. Lore, you go in, there's some premium wine. When you go there, you just have to make a reservation to enjoy those or experience them. They're separate.
Dow's sales price was driven by them having the fastest growing Cabernet in the country. And that was the $20 Cabernet, not the Soul of the Lion.
Right. So anyways, anybody else have any other questions? So Bill, we need to probably should let you go because we've gone way over.
I figured it would get dark and you'd have to give up.
No, it's not dark there for you. I can see.
My glasses aren't dark anymore.
Where's the sunset I heard you guys talking about? I don't see it yet.
No, we have we're in a valley here, and the sun just kind of goes behind the hills and the sun sets somewhere else.
It's dark here at my house.
Bill, thank you for your time, and thank you for being gracious with letting us run.
Thank you for inviting me very much.
We really appreciated it. It was a wonderful conversation.
This
I
is one
also
of the
mention I have too much wine personally. So if you ever have an opportunity to swing on by and drink wine with me or set up an event of some sort, I'd love to meet all of you eventually.
Oh,
count on it. Count on it.
There's a door I can walk right through. We'll be up there a Wine Fest weekend.
That's the other part of the problem. I'm only here weekdays. I commute back and forth to a town called Moore Park in Ventura County, where my wife of 49 years and my one daughter and 2 grandchildren live.
Oh, no kidding.
So I'm a commuter, I'm here for the boring part of the week. I'm not often here for the weekends.
Right. Yeah.
So I recommend Thursdays is the best day to catch me on. It's a good day to start tasting, and I'm still in town.
Awesome.
So does that mean you leave Friday morning to go back to Moore Park?
Usually. Yes.
Well,
Okay, I'll reach out. Maybe we can make something happen. I'd
Would love
love
that,
to, I'd love to meet you because so
Yeah,
Jennifer
no,
agreed.
yeah, thumbs up.
Anyways, we can't thank you enough. You were such a fascinating and engaging guest. I think you thought that nobody cared about the farming part. You
didn't
are
think so.
wrong. And this is the part where Jason and I go, well, tell us about your wine club and what your current offerings are. But we'll skip over that.
I have nothing to sell to anyone watching this. Probably. But if you need some grapes, we got a few left.
Thank you,
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you
We
very
really
much.
appreciate it.
Bill.
We all love Paso
thank you so
wines, and
much. Give him a hand. It was awesome.
let's do the best we can for Paso wines.
Yes, thank
You're
you.
you're a big part of the reason why there's success there. So
Blush.
yeah. Take care, Bill.
Thank you,
so
guys.
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, everybody can unmute. Hold on, let me unrecord.